Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for zooming into us this morning. My name is Barney Toll, and I'm a director and co-founder of Innovate NI, your host for this morning's event. Today is a red letter day, the launch of Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon's flagship small business support programme, Transform Your Business. Shortly, you'll be able to join my co-director Claire McGee in a stimulating fireside chat with successful entrepreneur Patrick McCalliskey, and after a brief overview of the Transform Your Business programme, a panel discussion with local ABC businesses who have experienced Council's mentoring support in the past and how they have transformed their business. You can see the agenda there to come up and stream, but first, to formally open the proceedings, a message from the Lord Mayor of Armagh City, Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council, Councillor Kevin Savage.
Good morning, everyone. You are very welcome to the launch of Council's newest initiative offering support and mentoring to local businesses, Transform Your Business. This initiative, delivered by Innovate NI on behalf of Council, has been specifically developed in the aftermath of COVID-19 to support micro, small and medium-sized firms to regain their ability to adapt and grow through proactive engagement and specialised business support. Transforming Your Business is a forward-thinking programme specifically developed to assist entrepreneurs, social enterprises and young businesses across our borough to embrace innovative ideas and new technologies. At its core, its focus on progressive business opportunities, inspiring product development and diversification, and promotes expansion through new and emerging export opportunities, particularly in the areas of digital technologies, manufacturing and engineering. As a council, this programme will be an active part of the growth and recovery strategy for our borough, helping to boost long-term Indigenous job creation for future generations. I am delighted that at today's event we will hear firsthand some inspirational stories from local businesses that have received support through programmes such as this and who have travelled this entrepreneurial journey to reach great success. Indeed, in just a moment, I will be handing over to Patrick McCalliskey, a man who hails from Lurgan, originally and is one of Northern Ireland's most respected IT professionals and business leaders. Patrick co-founded Novosco and as managing director led it from a micro business to one of the leading IT infrastructure and managed services operations in the UK and Ireland with over 300 employees. Finally, just before I hand over to Patrick, I would just like to acknowledge and thank our partner funders on this initiative, Invest NI, who have contributed to this programme development under the EU Investment for Growth and Jobs programme. So thank you, and over to you, Patrick.
Hi Patrick, I'm delighted to have you with us today, and thank you for taking the time out to have a conversation just about your journey and your background. So just starting off, tell us a bit about you and how come you came to start up an IT business and what triggered you to start Novosco.
Okay, thank you, Claire, and thanks for having the opportunity here to have an interview and me to give you some feedback. Hopefully, everybody attending today will get some benefit from it, even if there's only one point that they'll latch on to. But to answer your question, my background is from a very young age, I wanted to get involved in business. I had this desire fairly young. I remember it must have been about 10 or 11 years old that I wanted to start a business. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I wanted to be, I suppose, financially secure and independent. And after leaving school, I studied electronics. And then what happened was in the way electronics was changing back in the mid 80s, early 90s, a lot of it was becoming software engineering. So electronics was being managed by software. And I learned some tricks around using software to test circuit boards in the electronics industry. And I suppose, I worked whenever I came back to Northern Ireland, I worked for 3 businesses here. And at the age of 26, I decided, right, here's the opportunity and the time to go out on my own. And it made a big commitment then because I got married, built a house and started the business all in the same year, which scares the life out of most people at 26 years old. But, best thing I ever done. And I'm glad that it wasn't something that excited me, because, you know, the software business is actually, even though a lot of people look at it and go, you know, you either do websites or sell PCs. Well, actually, there's hundreds upon hundreds of different roles that are involved in IT. And so it's a very interesting, very intriguing area to specialize in. And I suppose the first businesses I created, I ran that for 13 years before I decided to merge it with another company to create Novasco. And that was the best decision I ever made in business, because from 2008, we turned over about £5 million then. And in 2020, we turned over 50 million. So that was obviously proof to me that I'd made the right decision then. So, you know, good sector to be in.
I mean, that's amazing growth of a business. And I'm just going to ask, you know, what have been the key milestones to your success in scaling that type of growth?
Well, from 94 to about 2007, you know, it took a long time. I suppose we grew from maybe day one, 2 people started the business. We grew to about 20 or 30 people by 2007. And the biggest milestone in the whole journey of the business and working in Novasco was actually me having, I suppose, the nerve to go and approach another company in 2007 and saying, for us to both achieve something great, why don't we just stick our 2 businesses together? And a lot of people back then thought this is a mad, crazy idea, because a lot of mergers fail and it's very risky. But I suppose I had the either the craziness or the madness to do it then. I don't know what it was, but I did follow through with the merger. And then that was definitely the right thing to do, because within 10 years, we'd grown significantly at a rate of about 20 to 30% every year. And then the next big milestone for us was we acquired a business in England in 2016. I think that was an acquisition of about £3 million. And that was in a place called Dursbury outside Manchester. And that gave us a foothold in England. Even though we'd been selling remotely in England at that stage, this gave us an actual place and a home in England. And the business actually started to become more English. And then I suppose the biggest leap forward for us was we started to deal with much bigger customers, particularly NHS trusts and housing associations. And in 2018, we were awarded a contract with Cambridge University Hospital, which was worth £108 million. So that was us significantly growing up. And if I have to reflect back, none of that would have happened if I hadn't had the bravery back in 2007 to do the merger.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's a huge achievement. You must have been dancing around the office the day that you
got. There's a lot of celebrations.
So just by nature then, are you a planner or a risk taker?
I would say I'm much more of a risk taker. I'm probably more the ideas person and not wanting to do being the nitty gritty. So I'm more a risk taker. But I would say, Claire, I would be keen to work out the risk involved, you know, measured risks, as opposed to, you know, I would never bet the bank on something. I would always have taken measured risks. But you can't grow successfully unless you do take those risks.
Okay. And there's also a saying, you know, expect the unexpected. What extra skills did you have to learn along the way? And was there anything that you didn't expect?
Yeah, probably quite a lot. I think, I mean, I trained as an engineer. So when you're an engineer and you're trying to sell, it feels quite foreign. You know, engineers quite often just want to talk about the tech. They want to talk about the nitty gritty, the details of how the thing works. And I had to sort of retrain my brain to go, the most important thing in our business is the sales engine, the speed at which we can transact, bring in new customers, make them happy, and keep doing business with them. So I had to convert from being an engineer into somebody who was much more commercially focused. And during all of that, I had to also, I suppose, become much more financially aware. So I had to understand profit and loss, balance sheet, you know, why these things matter. And so from between engineer, salesperson, accountant, you know, you had to learn a bit of all of those things. And I think, you know, I ended up becoming much more the people person. So making sure I was focusing on keeping everybody happy. So you have to wear all those hats, and always focusing on the customer to make sure, because after all, without them, we're nothing. We don't have anything.
That's it. And I suppose it's, kind of focusing on the people. You always had a really good culture in Novosco. That was kind of one of the really important things that, I visited your offices a good couple of years ago, and it was, even kind of the design and the setup and, everything was kind of people centric. And it's really good, that you kind of see that coming through as well. Just then, culture, as you said, is a very important aspect to your leadership in Novosco. Is that your secret sauce, or have you any others?
Well, I suppose, we really did focus on making sure that everybody developed on an ongoing basis. So, we had a mission statement in Novosco, which was to be the fearless champions of better. And it's an easy thing to say, but it's not so easy to do. But what Fearless Champions of Better was all about was every single person we strongly felt could just continue to get better and better. Because ultimately, if the individual gets better, the team that they're in gets better, and that means the company gets better. But the ultimate goal is if you're going to give better service to your customer by that happening. So, I have a saying that I always say, which is, happy staff, happy customers. Because you see, if those people that are delivering the service, the ambassadors of the business, if they're happy, your customers are going to be happy. That's going to come out in every conversation, and every day. You're going to, they're going to feel what that culture is. And another thing that I would have said a lot was that culture would eat strategy for breakfast, because you can have the best strategy in the world, but you see, if your culture isn't right, forget about it. When the culture is really what you do when nobody's looking, it's how do you interact with every individual. And it's hard to fake. You have to really believe in it. And I suppose one of the beliefs that we had was that to make sure everybody was getting better, we had to put our money where our mouth was. And that meant that we agreed to a training budget of over £2,000 a year for every single person in the company. And I remember looking at the figures one day, and we had 200 people. That was a training budget of £500,000 a year. So that's a heavy investment, and we wanted to do that all the time, continue to do it all the time.
And then I suppose just on that, many businesses at the minute are in the react and planning for recovery from COVID. In your journey of starting and growing and exiting the business, did you ever have to pivot?
I suppose we didn't really pivot as such, in the early days. I suppose in the very early days of the first company that I had before Novosco, which became Novosco, we had to pivot from doing a lot of software development and realizing that to do it properly needed a huge investment. And that's why we then, I suppose, pivoted towards doing the infrastructure. So Novosco its core business is around building the IT infrastructure for large organizations, NHS trusts and housing associations. So we would have pivoted away from doing software development then. But after that, the only real pivot that I suppose we did was making sure that the company could scale and grow by merging. That was a real significant change. And the other thing was focusing on the market outside of Northern Ireland. That was a real distinct, different change from what we've been doing for years. So they were sort of pivots, but not from a product or a startup pivot as typically is.
Okay. I bet you're lucky that you didn't have to pivot during COVID this year.
Absolutely. I mean, I look back on it, and I suppose our timing of being able to sell Novosco was either luck or very good judgment. I think it was probably a lot of good luck to have sold in November 19, because a short few months later is COVID. But I would look at it, Claire, and think that now is a fantastic opportunity, because a lot of businesses have had time to think things through more thoroughly, and there's great opportunity out there. The vast majority of businesses are going to come back and spend the way they did before, and the same with consumers. There's a lot of money there that's within the consumer's pocket that's got to be spent. So I would be very positive, even if a business had to pivot during COVID, that they could come out the other side doing really, really well. And I mean, look at the technology sector. The vast majority of it has done well through COVID because, technology's got the ability to do it from anywhere. We don't turn up in locations to deliver the service. We do it from any location. So home working works well. All the remote stuff is good. 99% of IT issues are resolved remotely. So that sort of means that if you're an IT company, you can still carry on delivering. Same as a software business, you can still carry on. So I'd be very hopeful.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, we've been working with a lot of businesses recently who traditionally wouldn't have used digital much in their strategy, and also, the local charity sector. And they've had to really, transform using digital technology and implement that. And they've been really resilient, which is great to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How can you tell that a pivot is required as opposed to keeping going with what you've already been doing, or just taking a different angle and knocking down barriers?
Well, I think, knowing, when when you need to pivot is, I suppose, your commercial achievements will dictate when you need to pivot, because I suppose very quickly you'll determine, are you doing something which is the market is buying into, or are your sales very slow? Because if you've given yourself any sort of a target, you will find very quickly that either your solution is working particularly well and you're having to hire more people to deal with the business. If not, there's probably a strong chance that what you're doing needs to be revised and changed to accommodate the success. So if you might need to pivot a lot quicker based on having very flat sales, or it can be just that your sales engine isn't properly configured. And I would talk a lot to other businesses about the sales engine to make sure, just like a car, it's properly oiled. You've got all the components, they all fit together, they're going at the right speed, you've got the right driver, all that going into making sure the right sales engine. And I think sometimes it's hard for some in small businesses that the sales engine isn't configured appropriately. And therefore you might pivot just because your sales engine isn't correct, as opposed to your product isn't great, so commercially should be the answer, when you need to pivot.
And then we talked before, a couple of weeks back, around the difference between a lifestyle versus exit strategy business. So some businesses might think, or some entrepreneurs might think a pivot could be between a lifestyle business and an exit strategy business.
Yes. Yeah.
So in your opinion, what's the difference between a lifestyle business and an exit strategy business?
Yeah, good question, Claire. I think, I think it's absolutely fine to have a lifestyle business, if it's paying you a good wage and you're comfortable with it. But ultimately, that business then potentially owns you, because without you and you doing 60 hours a week, the business is nothing. So therefore, to transform from a lifestyle business, you need to grow it so that business can exist with you not having to put in those level of hours or that amount of time. And I suppose to grow it, you need to do is start hiring smarter people than yourself, and hire lots of them, so that you can, surround yourself with really good people who can take over the responsibility and the reins to run the business. And if you're as small as a sole trader, that might just be, hiring smarter people. The answer might just be go and find a partner, where you can share that responsibility, because it's a very lonely life when you're the only person running the business. So my advice to be is, if you're a sole trader, go and find another person who's like-minded to run the business with you if you're a sole trader. And if you can't find a business partner, find a good mentor that's done it before. And quite often a mentor can come for free. You don't have to be paying a lot of money for a mentor. There's lots of people out there with great experience who can give you some, their own sort of hard knocks to make sure you don't make the same mistakes. And I suppose that's, after having been involved in business for 25 years, that would be the reason why I get involved with advisory work. Is why would I have done this for 25 years and not pass on some of the hard knocks that I've taken and some of the mistakes, a lot of the mistakes that I've made, and say to other people, no, don't do that. I think it's best to do that, and just getting those little nuggets of feedback at times makes a big difference.
which is great. And, you know, part of why we're here today is the launch of the Transform Your Business programme, open to businesses within the Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council area, where there is that flexibility and availability of expertise and mentoring support. So again, guys, I appreciate that maybe you take a further look into that and advancing and to get a mentor involved in your business. But Patrick, you're also an experienced non-exec director and investor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how important is mentorship and how important is leadership and success?
Yeah, I mean, I think both are hugely important, particularly the leadership. You know, I think to me, you know, I used to say to people that, you know, around the comment of leadership is that, you know, a fish rots from the head down. So if you have got poor leadership, you will find that that can be the single biggest reason for failure in a business, by not having the bravery to make those really difficult decisions, not making them on time, and therefore if you don't stand up and be counted as a leader, well then, you know, you can't blame anybody else for the failure of the business. And likewise, you know, mentorship is something that, you know, even the best athletes in the world need a coach or a mentor to guide them as to what they can do better. So why would a business leader not have the same? They need somebody who can be the angel on the shoulder and to give them a little pointer every now and again to say, actually, that was a good decision, but what about thinking about this as well? Or just having a mentor who can ask you open questions so that you can probe your own brain as to what is the best answer. You sometimes find that the answer is just by somebody asking you a certain question. It's not necessarily you coming up with the gems of wisdom and, you know, having all the answers. It sometimes is to do with just somebody probing you around the question. So I'd be a big fan of having at least one mentor, and also having very strong leadership. And you know, leadership isn't just something that you develop overnight and that's it, it's all sorted. It's something that you have to work on all the time. It's, you know, it's sharpening the saw. You have to go and make sure that you actually practice it and go and learn new skills all the time, so that, you know, you'll not be able to be the best leader in the world. But I tell you, if you go and speak to lots of other leaders and listen to what they say and attend conferences, when we get back to doing that in the flesh again, would be great. That's where you learn all those things to make yourself a better leader. And the other thing I would say as well, Claire, read a lot. You know, the best leaders read a book a week or more, because they're taking all that knowledge in and then distilling out the bits that matter to them. So, you know, talking to lots of other leaders and reading lots can help in that area.
That's it. It's like sometimes whenever you ask a question, you might already know the answer, but it's asking that question and getting that fresh pair of eyes and someone to come back and talk back and forth with is really important. Patrick, is there anything that you would do differently if you had the chance to relive the last 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I definitely would have tried to get business outside of Northern Ireland quicker. We started to really, I suppose, transact anything significant in about 2011, 2012. We should have been into the outside of the Northern Ireland market much quicker than that. You know, we dribs and drabs of business, but significant amounts didn't happen until then. So I would say, to advice to anybody here today, is go and try and find your markets outside of Northern Ireland quicker, and as fast as you can. And I'd also say as well, I mean, one of the key success points for me was merging with another company to create Novasco. I think if you're a certain size and scale, you should look at another competitor with a view to saying, come on, we'll join forces. Because what usually happens is if you join forces and develop a growth strategy between you, it gives people opportunities. So it gives people the opportunity. There might be a difference in age between the both owners. One might want to opt out earlier, but if you can grow something where there's that opportunity, it's a much, much better option. So getting outside of Northern Ireland and looking at mergers and acquisitions much earlier is something we didn't do. We did one small acquisition in 2009, but it was another 7 years before we did another one in England. And I think we should have potentially, we did try now that we had a couple of failed ones as well, but doing an acquisition earlier or a merger earlier would have been, I think, an accelerator to the business.
So having learned all of that on your journey, what's the next big thing for Patrick?
So, I mean, I love doing the advisory stuff. You know, it's great crack. It's really good. And I love to see local businesses doing really well and succeeding and feeling that you're able to play a part with that. But I suppose, Claire, I've always had an ambition to make or manufacture something. So that's on the agenda at the minute. So you never know. There might be something come down the line where there's something involved in actually creating a product, a physical thing. And now that I suppose I've a wee bit more time, although my wife wouldn't say I have a bit more time at the minute, because I have a habit of not being able to say no lots of times, but definitely in manufacturing or in producing something.
Well, based on your previous success, if you're looking for any investors for that manufacturing business, give me a shout.
No problem.
And you'll be glad to know we're running out of time, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. Just finally, you know, what would be your top 3 tips or takeaways for the audience today, all of whom are at different stages of their business journey? So, you know, young entrepreneurs, just early startups, and growth businesses, and then, you know, a lot of businesses that have been in business for a long time. But maybe you're thinking about, you know, taking that pivot or changing direction.
Well, I sort of touched on one of them earlier, which is looking outside Northern Ireland as a market opportunity and accelerating that as quickly as possible. I mean, you think about it, the population of Ireland is about 7 million, whereas the population of England, Scotland, Wales is about 60 odd million. So it's obvious there that there's a huge market just to the right-hand side. So expanding outside of Northern Ireland. But I suppose the other 2 things I would say is place one big bet in your business every year. So when I mean place a big bet, if you're turning over £1 million, a big bet might be spending £50,000 on a piece of equipment or a new area, or hiring a top salesperson, or, you know, agreeing to get involved in a new area, a business that you've never done before. But do one of those every year, because it makes the business interesting and exciting. Then if you keep plodding along doing the same thing, you don't have a sort of something to excite you as to what will be the next big growth factor. And I've seen this to great success in the past, where one of the big bets has ended up being a bigger business than what you had. So definitely looking at a big bet every year. And the last thing is, which I sort of touched on earlier as well, Claire, is making sure that you have your sales engine running as fast as you possibly can. Because a lot of people forget about that. You mean, you know, if you can perfect your sales engine, and what I mean by that is getting as many prospects as you can to know what your product is, so that you can take them and educate them as to what it is that you do, taking those prospects, converting them to potential customers, getting them through the hopper of being customers, keeping them delighted with your service, and then going back again and getting more prospects. And I think the only way you can do that is by understanding what your entire sales model is and what the engine is that you need to fulfill that. And I think you give yourself a much better chance for success once you have a world-class sales engine. It takes a lot of time to perfect, but that is what generates everything else. If you haven't got sales, you don't have a business. So you start with making sure you perfect that to start with.
Patrick, thank you. Thanks for your time. I'm sure we could have talked for hours, and I'm sure the businesses that are on this webinar today would be really dying to keep you on here and ask lots and lots of nuggets of information. But it was a real pleasure to have a conversation with you this evening. Thank you, and good luck in the new manufacturing business. And don't forget to give me a shout for that investment whenever you're ready.
I will indeed. And thank you, Claire, for the opportunity to speak today. And I wish everybody that's attending today the very best of success in the future. And hopefully I can hear a lot of the success stories of the companies in this area of Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon that have really succeeded over the next number of years. I wish you every success.
Well, find a good mentor was one of Patrick's quotes. So if it's good enough for Patrick Mikowski, it's good enough for me. Tonight, what I want to talk about is obviously the reason we're here today is the launch of the Transform Your Business program. So I'm delighted to say that Armagh Banbridge Craigavon has been one of the leading councils in Northern Ireland, providing business mentoring support to small businesses over the last decade. And indeed, over 1,200 small businesses have benefited from professional mentoring support over that time. And hopefully, they will have seen, as Patrick said, that having somebody to talk to and having somebody to chew over ideas with and provide knowledge that they don't have, is a great way forward for your business. Transform Your Business builds upon those deep foundations and is indeed the flagship business support program for Armagh Banbridge Craigavon Council. So we will provide bespoke mentoring and best practice workshops for 550 small businesses over the next 2 years. As I said, we're building upon the support. So Transform has become more focused in its delivery, and there are now 6 streams of support available. And I'd like to just to go through, very, very briefly what each of those are. So whereas before the program was open to absolutely any business, based upon research carried out by the council, they see that there are certain areas where they believe that there is a need and a hunger for this type of support. So the first stream is the Young Entrepreneurs Support Program. As you can see, it's aimed at the 18 to 29 age group, and it's very much a general bespoke mentoring program, providing support in terms of financial management, strategic growth, marketing, all the basic business processes that any business needs, but particularly aimed at young people who may not necessarily have had the experience of having worked in another business or in developing and run their own businesses. So that's a vitally important building block for the future of the economy in ABC. Another interesting one is the third sector, the social enterprise sector. And that's become a growing aspect. And we've seen a lot of that over the last 2 or 3 years, where the idea of businesses for good have grown up. And again, very straightforward business mentoring support for those types of organizations. And again, generally, they may not necessarily be led by people who have come through a strong business background, but more who have got an idea or an ideal even of what they want to do to work in the borough and create economic and social benefit. So again, very much looking at how we can make those social enterprises financially sustainable. Patrick mentioned one of the most important things, and he said it twice in his talk, one of the most important things you can do is sell outside this small, quite limited market of Northern Ireland. Again, population of just over 1.5 million people. We need to get outside of that, and we count export as anything outside of Northern Ireland. So if you're looking at exporting into the Republic of Ireland or even back into Great Britain, that is regarded as export to us. So if you're a business looking at how you can do your first stages in exporting, we'll help you looking at researching, identifying markets either overseas or outside of Northern Ireland, working on how you get over the export bureaucracy, which, as we know, has developed not only with Brexit but also with the Northern Ireland Protocol. But all those things are surmountable, and if you have somebody who has got knowledge and experience, then come to us and we will link you up with that person. The next 3 streams are the digital transformation. Again, working smarter and more effectively will really improve your business. A lot of people are still using a lot of manual processes in their businesses. So what we're looking at doing here is providing you with a digital transformation action plan, a plan that will allow you to, with the help of an external mentor, an external expert, to look at your business processes and identify where those could be digitally transformed. And believe me, we've done some ourselves in-house at Innovate NI, and it really does make a huge difference to your workload, to your efficiency, and to getting out to your customers in a much more effective manner. Another big area that has been really focused on by the council is looking at the digital technology sector. And there are quite a few digital technology businesses within the ABC area. And indeed, if you listen to Patrick, they're the ones that have survived and have taken opportunities throughout COVID. So we're really looking at how we can help those digital technology businesses grow. Patrick himself there was very clear when he said, you know, he was an engineer, he moved into software. He knew very little about, you know, how to grow a business, and that required a lot of learning and a lot of expertise. And as he said again, you know, the best way to shortcut that is to have a mentor who can help you take those shortcuts, learn what you need to learn, point you in the right direction so that you can manage your staff, manage your growing staff, manage new products. And the difficulty, as he said, at the end of the day, any business is only as good as its sales, continuously finding customers and clinching that sale with them. And then the sixth stream that we are looking at is, you know, how can we improve innovation within our businesses? And again, we're looking at how we can focus on new products, new processes internal to the business, new technologies that we can adopt, or new systems that we can put in place, which will help create a culture of innovation to allow innovation to grow within all of our staff. And again, we're focusing not completely, but mainly on manufacturing and engineering. But innovation is not, as I always say to people, it's not people in white coats and labs with test tubes. That's certainly is a part of it. But innovation is adopting new ways for you to do things in a better, more efficient, and more business-like manner. So those are the 6 elements of the program. We'll be running the program, as I said, between now and December 2022, with 550 businesses to go on to the program. And really what we have, apart from those streams, the only stipulations are that the business must be based in the ABC borough. You should employ less than 50 people, and you should not be an invest-in-I client. We say should not, because we can, if you are an investment client, with their permission, work with you, provided that we're not duplicating any of the support that is available from invest-in-I. To register your interest, we've tried to make this as simple as possible. We've embraced digital technology, we've gone online. So there's an expression of interest form available at the Armagh Banbridge Craigavon website. Just go to the /TYB, Transform Your Business page, and you will see there an expression of interest form, which you can fill in online. It'll take about, I would say, less than 5 minutes. That will go to council and they will then check your eligibility for the program, and that will get you onto the program. Or just email us at transform@innovate-ni.com, and we will send you directly the link that you can go to fill in the expression of interest form. The program is now open. As I said, it's open now until December 2022. I mentioned that there were 1,200 companies have already been through support. The only other stipulation is that you cannot have had support from any ABC program within the last 12 months. But if you've been on the program before the last 12 months, before March 2020, then you should be eligible for this program. So if you're interested, click those links and transform your business. Thank you. I'd now like to hand you over to Claire, and she is going to lead on a panel discussion with previous participants in our mentoring programs.
Morning, everyone. And as Barney said, my name is Claire McGee, and I'm also Director at Innovate-NI. Following on from the great chat I had with Patrick McKelsey earlier, I'm delighted this morning to welcome and facilitate the conversation with 3 local female business leaders. Sarah Jane Mowbray, Transformation Lead at Social Enterprise Incredible, Dr. Jane Vaughan, Dentist and Founder of Fresh Aesthetics, and Kim Lamont, Digital Stylist. So I'm just going to invite the ladies to come on screen and share their camera. So we can all be in agreement that COVID has caused chaos worldwide for businesses. However, despite the doom and gloom of the crisis, there are many examples of how this has brought out the raw entrepreneur in some business owners and organisations, requiring them to pivot creatively and quickly. be that by finding new ways to stay in business, identifying new opportunities, or just using the crisis to review their current business models and service deliveries. So first up, I'd like to welcome Kim Lamont. Kim is founder of Digital Stylist, a small Northern Ireland agency that offers the complete digital and branding package. Kim is dedicated to the brand she works with and focused on the return on investment and building businesses up to their fullest potential. Kim, if you'd like to share with the audience a bit about your background and your entrepreneurial journey.
Yes, so Digital Stylist started basically around 4 years ago. I was working as a digital marketing assistant, and obviously, as we all know, the graduate wages aren't very much. So I started it as a sideline to try and make a wee bit extra money. Started really just designing logos for friends who own businesses, and then it developed into the web design side of things. I started a Facebook page and an Instagram, and it all really took off. I messaged a girl who had a massive following on Instagram. She was looking for a new website. And from there, word of mouth really just spread, and Digital Stylist turned into something that I never expected. So about a year and a half ago, I started really taking it seriously and bit the bullet and became self-employed full-time. And a year and a half on, it's going really good.
Great. Kim, was the experience scary?
Yes, definitely. It still is. So obviously, as all of us know, quitting your secure employed job to go self-employed full-time is terrifying. But I think the reward definitely outweighs the risk. Like every day you're panicked, but it's worked out well.
Great. And what are the future growth plans, and where would you like the business to be in 10 years from now?
So short-term plans, I'm hoping to actually employ my first person this summer. So I work alongside a few freelancers at the moment, and I'm hoping come July, one of them will be employed with me full-time. In 10 years' time, I would love to have a Digital Stylist headquarters so I could hold training days. You know, there'd be no more coffee shop meetings with clients with bad Wi-Fi. I'd love us to have a base, you know, continue flexible working if I have a big team, but somewhere for us all to meet up and have training days and like stuff like that.
And then you were involved in the business engagement program, a previous mentoring support program through Armagh and Bridge and Craigavon Council. How has mentoring support benefited your business planning and growth?
So I started my mentoring program last summer, and at the time I was expecting my first baby. So with COVID and everything, business had really picked up. You know, everyone wanted to get online, everyone wanted to start digital marketing. So I was speaking with Gordon at the time, my mentor, and I was telling him how stressed I was. Everything's growing so quickly and I have a new baby coming. How am I going to manage this and not let it all slip? So Gordon was able to help me figure out contracts for freelancers, how to manage them, how to keep growing, but not get overwhelmed by it. You know, we looked at insurances, projecting figures, cutting back on expenses, and then really he helped me nail down my unique selling points. So rather than offering a million different things, we were able to figure out 3 brand pillars for me that, you know, really sold the business and that I enjoyed doing. So I wasn't having to do stuff anymore that I didn't really like. And, you know, really, it just helped to have someone to hold me accountable. He was able to point out stuff that I was maybe not given enough TLC to. Like, he did point out that, Kim, you're a digital marketer who doesn't do your own digital marketing. So, you know, stuff like that, he really, really was helpful.
Now that's good. And as we talked about earlier in the conversation with Patrick, it's good to have that fresh pair of eyes, just someone to bounce those ideas off and someone to kind of keep track, which is great. And I meant to say to the audience, if you have any questions for our panelists, if you want to pop them up in the Q&A or the chat facility, and we'll try to get through them. So Kim, if you stay with us, thank you for now. We may have some more questions to come back to at the end, but next up, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Jane Vaughan, a dentist and founder of Fresh Aesthetics. Jane specialises in harmonious skin rejuvenation treatments aimed at boosting confidence and self-esteem through the provision of non-surgical treatments like Botox, dermal fillers and chemical peels. So Jane, you're very welcome. I was just going to invite you, Jane, to share with the audience a brief background about Fresh Aesthetics.
Sure. So hello, everybody, and thank you, firstly, Claire, for inviting me to appear on the panel today. So my name is Dr. Jane Vaughan. My business is called Fresh Aesthetics, I provide facial aesthetic treatments and medical grade skincare. For those of you that don't know, facial aesthetic treatments are injectables such as Botox and fillers and skin rejuvenation. This sector sometimes gets a bad reputation though. However, I take a fresh and natural and very ethical approach to it. I qualified as a dentist from Queen's in 1998. However, after nearly 20 years of fixing teeth, I found I was no longer challenged or fulfilled. My husband qualified as a dentist at the same time as me, and he had recently completed a master's degree in his specialty. And this made me reflect on my own professional journey, and I wanted more personal fulfillment, challenge myself. My kids were up a bit, so the time had come for me to put myself first for a change. I'd always an interest in facial aesthetics, not so much from a beauty point of view, but more from a medical perspective on how injectables could stave off the aging process and maintain skin health. So in January 2017, I did my first foundation course in Botox and fillers and discovered my passion. So going from being such an experienced dentist to a complete novice in this new specialty was quite a shock for me. However, my background in dentistry did prepare me well due to my in-depth knowledge of head and neck anatomy, injection skills, and patient management protocols. I could have stopped my training after my foundation course as I was technically qualified to practice facial aesthetics. However, I wanted to expand my depth of knowledge, gaining expertise to feel truly confident and experienced carrying these procedures out, because after all, these are people's faces that I'm injecting. Therefore, I've spent tens of thousands of pounds in the last few years attending various conferences and training courses and continue to do so. Initially began to practice facial aesthetics alongside dentistry in a few different dental practices, and also took a job as an injector in a nationwide medical clinic. This gave me a huge amount of valuable experience in my first few years. So after a time, I was eventually ready to set up on my own, and Fresh Aesthetics was born. By this stage, I had quite a few regular patients, but no premises. So I rented various rooms and salons and a physio practice while I grew my practice further. Finally, in 2019, I took the leap to convert a room in my house to a home clinic and quit dentistry for good. So where does the ABC Council Business Engagement Programme come into all this? Initially, I naively thought that I could grow my business through Facebook and word of mouth. However, this proved really difficult because often people don't like to admit to others they've had injectable treatments. I also found that people were reluctant to like or share posts on my Facebook page as they felt it implied they themselves were having treatments. However, my Fresh Aesthetics Instagram page has been more successful as I've grown it to 3,700 followers. Nevertheless, I felt I'd hit a wall in terms of expanding my business. My dental background made the clinical side of aesthetics easy to learn. However, the business side has been really challenging for me as I had no business background, a complete lack of IT skills, and no marketing knowledge. I knew I needed help and support to plug these gaps in my knowledge, so I reached out then to the ABC Council, and that's brought me where I am today.
That's a fascinating journey, and a real pivot from a career into entrepreneurship in a different field as well. So obviously, you know, COVID threw you a curveball at the start of your business, which is a face-to-face clinical service that you provide. How did you overcome this challenge?
Yeah, so initially I was really stumped because obviously I couldn't treat patients, I couldn't see people, so I felt a bit lost at the start. But then I branched into doing online consultations for patients, and then I also branched into retailing skincare. So I'd always wanted to introduce medical grade skincare to the clinic, but I never had the time to actually learn it before. And luckily my chosen brand, Illumiere, also pivoted during the first lockdown to provide their training online. So I was able then to do the training online to support my patients with home care. So that was great.
Yeah, and Jane, we talked previously and you highlighted that you use COVID as an opportunity to pivot and develop your business behind the scenes. And utilise the support through the business engagement. Can you tell us a bit more about how you use the support and the benefits it provided?
Well, my mentor was absolutely brilliant for me. So she taught me all the sort of things that I hadn't a clue about because of my really narrow background in dentistry. So she was a lady called Susanna Hall, and she was just so helpful. First thing she helped me to do was to develop my website. So again, I had no website previously, so she helped me set that up. She set up a Google My Business page for me, which has been brilliant as well. I didn't even know existed, but now I have one. And she encouraged me to get reviews from my patients. So now I've got 67 5-star Google reviews, which is really helpful then for new patients who are searching for a practitioner. She taught me how to use MailChimp for marketing to my current patient base. She taught me how to use Canva, which is vital. A lot of my, I use Instagram a lot for my business, so I needed Canva. It looks a lot more professional now. And also she set up a Fresh Aesthetics LinkedIn page and taught me how to use blogs.
Great, and I'm sure the audience today may have questions for Jane, so feel free to pop them in to the chat. Jane, thank you, and we'll come back later. Just lovely to welcome now Sarah Jane, last but not least, Sarah Jane Mowbray. She's Transformation Lead with the social enterprise Incredible. They create meaningful social, recreational and educational opportunities for people with learning disabilities and autism. They've had an incredible growth from humble beginnings of supporting 20 young people in 1997 to now supporting over 500 beneficiaries and also managing facilities to accommodate their service provision. Sarah, if you'd like to give us or tell us about the great work of Incredible and the story behind Incredible.
Absolutely. So thank you, Claire, for giving me the opportunity to share Incredible's story and how it has benefited from business mentoring. So just to start about Incredible, we're a social enterprise, as you said there, meaning providing meaningful opportunities to people with learning disabilities and or autism. We operate primarily in the ABC Council area. We're a quirky, unique organisation with lots to offer the 550 plus individuals who we support every year. We operate in sort of two distinct areas. We have respite service provision and enterprises. So in terms of the respite, we have a range of offerings. So adults with a learning disability can go on our weekend or our week-long residentials in one of our facilities in Armagh or the Mourne Mountains. Children can attend day-long and overnight respite through a number of the programmes which we deliver, and that offers a well-needed break to families and carers as well for the children. We offer bespoke packages for children and adults with a learning disability or autism, as we believe that everyone has the right to access activities and events in the community on their own terms. And the purpose of this support really is to help individuals to be as independent as possible and live the life that they want. In relation to autism services, we also offer Daily Living Skills Programme, which, as the name suggests, teaches autistic individuals fundamental living skills, such as budgeting, cooking, whilst developing their social skills. So then on the enterprise side of the house, we operate two cafes. We have the Jethro Centre, which is in Lurgan, and the cafe in ABC's Council's new state-of-the-art leisure centre at South Lakes. As these executive restrictions start to ease, the cafes will start to open up and trade freely again, and the cafes will then be providing meaningful training and employment opportunities for individuals with learning disability or autism. Hospitality was new to us back in 2017, and this is where Incredible benefited from the business mentoring under ABC's Social Enterprise Hub, and Derek Brown specifically. So Derek worked with the team at Incredible to navigate the minefield that is hospitality. He's setting up two operations within very quick succession. Derek had detailed knowledge of the ABC area, which Incredible benefited significantly from. He identified procurement opportunities and he helped Incredible in the tender process. So in addition to these larger enterprises, we also run a number of micro enterprises. We currently offer a printing and packaging service, and pre-COVID we had a chocolate lolly making enterprise, which we are currently in the process of establishing. These enterprises provide meaningful day opportunities, a real sense of purpose for adults with a learning disability or autism. So then in terms of my role, with the onboarding of the cafe at South Lake and the general growth of Incredible, I came on board in November as Transformation Lead just to make sure that we have the right sort of governance and structures in place for this continued growth and to make recommendations to strengthen the systems.
So what is the strategic direction for Incredible now going forward, Sarah, in order to sustain the service provision and to scale forward, scale further?
Okay, we've just gone through a strategic planning process. So we have completed our 3-year plan, which we will be embarking on next week, which focuses on us creating new meaningful opportunities for people with learning disabilities. We are very fortunate that we have established strong working relationships within the ABC Council area and with the Trust. And this is something that we plan to develop further, particularly at South Lakes. And there are lots of exciting plans for that area, and we would love to be part of those plans. And we would also like to develop more links with some of the special skills in the area. A learning disability is a lifelong condition. It doesn't stop when an individual leaves schools, and we want to try to reduce the number of school leavers leaving, school leavers with a disability falling into that perpetual cycle of training programs. So we want to create a meaningful end destination, whether that's employment or volunteering with Incredible or another organisation.
And I suppose COVID has affected everyone. You know, has COVID affected your social enterprise, and what have you done either to overcome it or to take advantage of it?
Yeah, we were forced to suspend the majority of our operations at the end of March, and because most of our work was face-to-face, we wanted to keep the participants safe and we wanted to keep the staff safe. But we quickly reviewed our diverse range of enterprises and our service provision, and we engaged with the stakeholders to find out what it was that they needed and how we could best meet that need within the strict social distancing guidelines. Many of the individuals that we support and their families were really keen for us to re-establish our services again, because lockdown for a family with a member with a learning disability can be very intense without any sort of respite provision. So from July of last year, we gradually and safely recommenced our provision. We moved our monthly face-to-face Black Moon Disco to an online platform. We pivoted our youth projects online, but we continued to deliver the residential trips. We worked with the Trust and we made sure that all of the social distancing guidelines were in place. So we provided a minimum of 5 two-night residentials, but instead of having a group of 10, we could only have 2 or 3 on the trips. We continued to provide our bespoke package and delivered 700 hours a month, roughly, to individuals with a learning disability. And then in the midst of all of this, we successfully tendered for the new cafe at South Lake Leisure Centre, which we opened in November. And we've taken advantage of South Lake being a vaccination centre, and we got a contract with the Trust to provide refreshments to the staff administering COVID vaccinations.
Very resilient, Sarah-Jane, well done. How has Incredible benefited from mentoring support or access to external expertise?
Yeah, so I suppose, as I mentioned earlier, Incredible is part of the ABC Social Enterprise Hub, and we're mentored with Derek Brown. He helped Incredible shift the income focus from relying on grants to self-generating, so that sort of move towards the enterprises. His local knowledge of the ABC area helped Incredible identify new opportunities, and then Derek helped Incredible capitalize on those. So as a mentor, Derek was more than just there to provide business advice. He was at the end of the phone to bounce ideas off, which really helps when you're in a small organization to challenge your thinking, help shape your thinking so that you can make better, more informed decisions.
Okay, and thank you, Sarah-Jane. And we are kind of running out of time, but there are a few questions coming in from the audience, and there's one in particular from an audience member, Roisin. Great to see this female-focused panel. Well done to all in their small business success. What advice would you give to young women thinking of starting or transforming their business and overcoming the challenges of gender inequality in the business landscape? If I pass that to Kim, maybe to start off.
Yeah. So I have actually never worked with in any of the marketing teams I've been on. There's never been any men, so I haven't really had to face any inequality in the workplace, thankfully. But I did go to a seminar last year down in Dublin on the pay gap. So really, I would say, if you are employing people, try and employ people from different genders, different backgrounds, and keep everything as equal as you can. On a small scale, there isn't really much we can do about it other than carry out things the way we know they should. That's maybe not that helpful an answer, but
no,
we can all do our little bit.
That's it, and I suppose it's something always for, to be mindful of whenever you are kind of growing your teams as well. And there's a question for Sarah-Jane. Sarah-Jane, if there was one thing you could change about your business, what would that be and why?
So as I have mentioned earlier, I was brought in to do a review and Incredible and to make recommendations for change. And the first thing that I realized very quickly about Incredible, that's a fantastic organization. Really strong vision, really passionate staff, and the staff really know and understand the vision and the purpose of the business. So there was no radical changes or anything that were required. The changes which I had identified really were through gaps in management training, things that can be easily fixed, financial management, people management. And I suppose the challenge in the voluntary community sector is that getting that balance between staff being out and doing training rather than doing that sort of face-to-face time, which is generally income generating. So a change in mindset was required, which is kind of where Patrick was alluding to earlier with that, having to develop your staff. So we built that into our strategic plan to develop as a learning organisation. And this will make sure or ensure that staff are skilled to continuously develop themselves and develop the organisation.
Okay, thank you. And finally, just if I ask each of you, what's your one piece of essential advice for businesses seeking to either adapt to new ways of working, to pivot, or to scale? And I'll go to Jane first for that.
My piece of advice would be to build a network, build a community around yourself. So reach out to like-minded businesses, other entrepreneurs on Instagram or LinkedIn, like their page, follow their work, and build a support network, because I really get a lot of inspiration from other people who are ahead of me, women who are growing their own businesses single-handedly, and I see how well they're doing. So I think, build those people around you and they'll spur you on.
Kim?
One thing that I should have been doing from the very start that I learned from Gordon through my mentoring was not to undersell yourself. So one piece of essential advice would be, do not undersell yourself. Like, know your worth, charge correctly, and make sure that you know you're worth this amount of money.
And finally, Sarah Jane.
Be really clear on your visions and values and stick to them. Make sure that that your staff know that what your vision is and that you live by your values. So before you think about any sort of new ways of working or pivoting or scaling, just ask yourself, how does this help me achieve my vision? And if it doesn't, maybe reconsider the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you all, ladies. Thanks for joining us this morning. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the great panelists and also our guest speaker, Patrick Michalewski. I hope you'll all agree with me that although we're a couple of minutes over, it's been an hour well spent, and I, for one, have learnt lots. I'm just going to invite Councillor Brian Pope, Chair of the Economic and Regeneration Committee, for closing remarks. And again, if you have any, if you want to get in touch, if you want support through the mentoring programme, please do follow the links, take them down at the end, and we'll also send copies of the watch again for the seminar. Okay, thanks everyone.
It is my pleasure to have the opportunity to conclude this event by thanking all the participants for their fascinating insights. I hope everyone found it as informative as I did. It was really great to hear how programs like this are inspiring and benefiting our local businesses, and I am excited by the enthusiasm expressed here today for the future of entrepreneurism in our borough. I would like to express my thanks to Innovate NI, who are delivering the programme on the Council's behalf. The Transforming Your Business programme is now open for applications. To apply, please contact Innovate NI. Contact details will be shown on screen at the end of this event. Before signing off, I would like to remind everyone of a comment made by the founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. He said, "The biggest risk is not taking any risks. In a world that is changing really quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is not taking risks." So I encourage as many local businesses as possible to engage with this programme so that they are not just able to survive, but thrive within our borough and on a global stage. Thank you for attending, and goodbye. Thank you. Bye.